So hi everyone, my name is Noam Dror. I run solution engineering here at SecuPi. In the last 30 years, I've been working with enterprise customers, governments, different types of industries to help them find solutions for their cybersecurity needs, especially in data privacy, data protection, identity and access management. So that's my field. So I'm happy to introduce my colleague, esteemed colleague, Carl. Why don't you take a minute to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Noam. Thank you for being here today. Hi, everybody. My name is Carl. I'm not a security guy. I'm an SAP guy. I'm working for SNP, which is like a very close SAP company. I'm working in the product management department, and all my working life, I'm dealing with SAP data. So before SAP, I was building reports, business warehousing. So I know how to what to do with SAP data and how important it is for the business. And of course, the work continues. I touch cloud data warehouses, and yeah, now my mission and my team's mission is to help our customers to make SAP data available in these kind of infrastructures, cloud data warehouses, to bring the most benefit to their business, to gain the most value out of the data they have. Thank you.
So it sounds like other than English and German, you know how to speak ABAP and BAPI.
That's true. That's true. You also, but it's also helping to know German, because there are a lot of German shortened words inside the old
Yes.
SAP code, inside the table. So yeah, you see that the roots are in Germany. So you still
So
see that. Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start our chat, and maybe let's start with like market needs. What do you see today in the market that requires having SAP data out there in the cloud, not necessarily inside SAP? What do you think is driving for it?
The main driver that I see is that it's not just enough to understand your SAP data, like understanding how much money you earned yesterday, what are your upcoming orders. The main thing is to bring all the data you have together and gain insight from it, and how the world works. Typically, you're not bringing all these different data together in SAP, because it's like a very critical storage. You want to have it protected as much as you can. Also, the storage is not as cheap as you're having like this in cloud data warehouses. So customers are searching for platforms where they can easily bring in all their different kind of data, including SAP, which is very important, but you also have other data sources. And you want to build like data models, data marts, data mesh, connecting all these kind of different data sources to have like a 360-degree analysis of your business, just not only SAP, just something with SAP. But yeah, the world is big, and if we look on our customer landscapes, they have like hundred of different systems which important business data, and yeah, cloud is the way to go to bring all this together.
Yeah, it makes sense. I
Yeah.
can tell you, I see it with customers. More and more customers wants to run artificial intelligence, build new machine learning models. In order to do that, they need big data. And one important aspect of big data is the ERP data, right? Who are my customers? What kind of transactions I have? What's my inventory? All of that important data that is being held by SAP in order to operate the business. That's huge for AI later on. So I do see that need. So if it's needed, why we don't see it so frequently in the cloud, right? So SAP is a very closed environment. Why do you think it didn't happen so far? Why we don't see every Snowflake and every Databricks out there in the world having SAP data?
the thing is with SAP, and that is our niche, right? Um, it's a bit more complicated than connecting other sources. So it's I wouldn't say it's a protected area, but as you were saying in the beginning, with like the complex stuff, SAP is like a very old stack, which is great because they have like all this stability growing with the customers for decades, and it's just it's just huge and complex. And of course, sometimes the stack is a bit older. You do not have like all these great new patterns how to develop software for cloud. This is not the real life what are the type of SAP systems we see on our customers. So usually it's like older stacks, older technology, a bit or highly protected also by the SAP basis guys. So it's tricky. You do not have like a database connector and you crawl data from. So there's like there are just like a couple of different ways how to extract the data, and you also see it in the area of how many different companies are able to do that properly. So there are not many that we see like in this competitive space of extracting SAP data.
So you're saying not easy. Technically, it's not easy to do, right?
Not easy, no.
Not easy to do. Two, just said security. I'm going to talk a lot about that, you know, why SAP data is so important and needs to be secured. But I think there's also some internal SAP stuff that sometimes pops up in terms of licensing or policies.
Of course, yeah. You also, I mean, we really know how to play this thing, but as like beside like the complexity from the technology side, you also have like a bit of you have legal constructs that are very clear what customers are allowed to do and what not, and also what uh, um, or what would produce additional cost for the customers if they are going like extraction way number two, for example. And yeah, we played this game through, so we know how to use what, which technology is compliant with the license model of the customer. So we are pretty good in like giving the customer the software by hand that is compliant with the SAP licensing model. Also, we are certified by SAP, so it's not like a hidden thing that we're doing. So we are yeah, we are aligned with all the development guidelines, and we also support all the latest requirements from SAP to run a safe software inside the SAP system.
Yeah, oh, that makes sense. So if I go back to the security question, I think, you know, I ask why we don't see a lot of SAP data moving to the cloud, but from what I see, even SAP customers, they're not very fast at moving from on-prem implementations to cloud implementations. I think one of the reasons is the same, which is they're concerned about security. They want to make sure that when they move to the cloud, their data is secured at least as much as it is secured in their on-premise data center, right? And that means, one, it needs to be encrypted. Two, it needs to be fully audited. Three, it needs to be fully authorized, so you know exactly who gets access to what. Four, it needs to emulate the governance, the access governance that is governed by SAP GRC. That's another important part. So all those things, you know, kind of slow down the move of that data into cloud inside SAP or outside SAP. That's you know what I believe
Yeah,
in terms of adoption.
I can confirm that because when you look into the customer's SAP system, there's like logic, created logic over years. So when you look into the SAP system on how what roles are created there. So it's clearly defined who is allowed to see what. Everything is governed, defined with legal. You have all this, and then we are facing situations with the customer when we are extracting SAP data. So highly governed. You have like hundred of roles, different personas. It's clear defined who sees what, and then you're extracting the data to Snowflake or to a different cloud platform. And usually you have your super user or super admin, and you have your common user. So you do not find this this detailed level of security and role-based access control in the cloud. And it's not so easy, but we will come to that later, to migrate that logic that you have on the SAP system. So this is usually a thing that is slowing down all this process, right?
Yeah. Slowing down adoption, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know that there are some security concerns that's important. We know that we need to know more about who will get access to the data. We know that we need to filter the data. We need to execute access controls on that data. And you just said it's not that easy to get the governance rules from GRC to the outside world because they are built for SAP. They're not that easy to pull out to the outside world. And the other thing that you said is that there are privileged users. There are more privileged users with more privileges in the outside world, in the cloud, than there are in SAP. You don't have a lot of people with full access to everything inside an on-prem SAP environment. So that's, a big deal usually for a customer. So you want to tell us a little bit about how you solve this problem of how do I get my SAP data into the cloud?
Of course, yes. So we have at SNP we have a software which we use for this cloud data integration, and we call this software SNP Glue. So we are gluing like the SAP system of the customer and the cloud platform of the customer together. How we are different to others, so we bring in our own interfaces into the customer's SAP system. So we are an add-on. Our software is directly running into the SAP system and is very deeply integrated to that, which means we can read all these different type of data, not just like table data. We can access all these informations that are stored and logic that's stored inside the SAP system. And we also support the licensing model, as already mentioned. We're compliant with that. Due to this deep integration, we also support the standard SAP pattern. So like an administrator that is working with SAP, he exactly knows how to govern our software because we are within the standard space. So there's nothing new that is going to be installed on the network. So it's just like a piece of software that can be adopted by the SAP users extremely fast. We are very specialized in this area. So we have our own CDC implementation. So we can, we're not only doing full loads all the time. So our software is built for high volume loads in the end. So we do high volume loads, and then we send over these deltas. So like newly generated data, we can set it out in a near real-time streaming pattern. So we can send you the updates in seconds. And this is not super easy. So we're doing this for like over 7 years. So we now know how to do it, and we are happy that we have like big customers that went down this journey with us to find the best ways how to integrate most efficient with the cloud platforms that they are having.
So I heard you say most efficient. I think one of the secret sauces of SNP Glue is that efficiency and the ability to reduce cost for the customer. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, from a way of what is most important, the most important for integration solution that it's stable, so it's not breaking up. So we are doing this all covered, and it's efficient, which means it's has a very low footprint on the source system, because the last thing you want to have, because on the on-prem SAP system, you're not scaling like in the cloud. So you have your fixed number of resources assigned to the system, and the main goal is like to be very efficient here and not like slowing down any important core processes. So for example, an order cannot be booked because we are replicating data to the cloud. So we ensure that this is not going to happen. So stability and performance are the most important functionalities for us.
Makes sense. So on the security side, you know, with the integration that SecuPi has with SNP, we also provide a big reduction in cost. And the reasons for it is that, one, we can encrypt the data in the application itself, in the Java application that we're running on top of NetWeaver. So that's one. We can also run that encryption process if you're using streaming on the streaming platform, right? So I think we talked yesterday as we prepare for this, that we have the ability to do it on Kafka and other streaming applications. So we can distribute the encryption of that. So that's an important thing. The other important part is that we decrypt the data outside of the cloud platform. So if you move your data into Snowflake, I can decrypt the data outside of Snowflake, which means you don't need to pay for a lot of CPU power and a lot of applications within Snowflake that can reduce the payment you do for them. We can even take it into the layer where the consuming application will actually decrypt the data. So if you're using Tableau, or if you're using Power BI, or if you're using an AI module, you're using Jupyter notebooks, or using a desktop database administration solution, that desktop will decrypt the data for you, right? Or that Power BI will decrypt the data for you, and therefore you're not paying for CPU, right? Because when you use regular applications, you're not paying for CPU. So I think there's a lot of reduction in cost there in terms of the green dollars that you need to pay. But also, you want to have one platform to manage all of your security procedures. And I think the biggest cost savings is the ability that we are building now together, where SNP bring us the information from GRC around the roles, who are the users, what they can do to the data, and then we will take that information and implement it into rules that we can enforce in the cloud environment. So it doesn't matter if you moved your SAP data to Snowflake or BigQuery or Databricks or Synapse, it doesn't matter where it is. It can be in multiple places. We will apply the same GRC rules on that data. Right?
Exactly. And this is like a piece you're not finding in the market. So this is like not solved yet, and we are happy that we are already trying, or that we're already working on that to solve it for our customers. Maybe Noam, we were like preparing a slide visualizing how we're doing the integration. Maybe you can show this to make this picture also visually complete.
Yeah. Let me show it.
And
it's this one.
And also what you can see at the picture is that what Noam was saying, which is like creating a low footprint on the resource consumption on the platform, which means encrypting the data in the source is also an extremely security feature, because we are encrypting the data, or we're encrypting the data in the source before it's sent over into the public internet, into the private network. However, it's directly encrypted in the source, and then we're sending it out.
That part, encrypting in the source, sometimes you are required by regulation to do it. I know there are German laws, there are French laws, there are a lot in Europe. There are governments that are telling you you're not allowed to take European customer data and put it in the clear in the cloud. When it goes to the cloud, it has to be encrypted, regulated data. And therefore, you have to encrypt it before it moves to the cloud. So one, it's efficient, but two, sometimes you're just required to do it. There is no other way to do it. Right?
Yeah, perfect. So we have like with the one approach, we have like two major benefits all already achieved, and it shows that the architecture, how we designed SNP Glue, with being directly running on the customer source system and not like a dedicated client or whatever kind of different architectures you have, that this is extremely robust and ensures security and compliance for our customers, which is super important.
So in this slide, I can also see that you can take information from multiple SAP environments, right? So that's important.
Yeah, thank you, Noam. I forgot to mention it. So our software is working on any SAP system. So it can be like an older ECC or ERP system, however you call it. Can be a newer S/4HANA system, on-prem, but also a private cloud. We do not care. Can be a BW system, can be like a logistics system like EWM. So it works on any SAP system, and that's why it's why we love it so much. It's highly compatible in the SAP area, and it's like your it's like a magic Swiss knife. You can, because of the deep integration into the application layer, you have no limitations. Of course, sometimes it helps to know ABAP to be specialized, but we are also covering this part with our service department for the customers. So no worry for that. So we can do everything if we want.
The other thing I like about this is that you can see that if you have, clear text data here with John Smith and an ID for that, we are, when I say we're encrypting the data, usually people say, oh, encryption, that's a very long ciphertext that no one can understand, but we are actually doing what is called format preserving encryption. And format preserving encryption means that you get information that looks like the original one. So if that was John Smith here, this is the new John Smith encrypted. So it looks like first name, last name, and the ID looks like ID. What I like about this, other than the fact that it looks like a real data, is that it actually has a meaning. So for example, if you want to join two tables by an ID number, that ID will be consistent. So you have referential integrity, and you'll be able to get insights even when you have encrypted data. So that's important. We can also support other de-identification techniques. So that can be generalization. Let's say I want to have just the birth date of the year, or if I want to comply with the safe harbor rule, for example, it will be a year unless you're 89 and above, and then all of those years will be like as if you were 90 years old. That's the rule for a safe harbor compliant solution. So we can support bucketing like that. We can support masking. We can support random replacement. We can support pulling from lists. So we have a lot of de-identification techniques that can happen here. And when you consume the data on the other side, so let's say you have a Tableau, Power BI, or a Jupyter Notebook to run your AI and machine learning modules, each person will see different data according to their attributes. And that's another thing we see, that sometimes the regulations, we're doing all of that usually because of there's some sort of a regulation, there's a compliance issue. And sometimes you have a contract with the customer that tells you only citizens from the same country can see my data. Sometimes there's a contract with a customer telling you only people that are located in the same country can see my data. Sometimes you have regulations that tell you only people who went through a specific certification. So you have to do an exam, you have to learn something, do an exam. Only after you pass the exam, you are able to see the data. So we can take different types of attributes and allow them to see the data they should see according to those attributes when they consume it. So that's an important part. And as we said, if you are taking your GRC role structure, we can apply those roles when this data is being consumed in the outside world, according to those attributes. That can include role membership, that can include group membership, and that can include data that is not necessarily in SAP, maybe citizenship, maybe real-time location, maybe something from your learning management system. So it can be anything like that. Make sense? Oh, the other thing here, this is all supported by your solution, by SNP Glue,
Yes,
right? You
yes.
can move it to different types of data stores. And the nice thing is that we support all of those data sources, and we are kind of certified with all of those vendors, right? So we are a partner of Snowflake and BigQuery and Databricks and AWS and Confluent, right? So that's another important part.
That's a good fit. This is also a benefit of our solution, of being like target agnostic. So the customer can freely decide what is his target cloud data platform, or can be even multiple data platforms, the full flexibility. And this is why we have this joint go-to-market together with SecuPi, because it fits very well on the way how we see the cloud data ecosystem. But also we have these questions quite often from customers to how can you ensure security on the cloud platform? What can I do with the roles? How can I crypt the data with referential integrity? Because this is not so easy if you're just like extracting data out, because for the integrity you have to know the whole data set. So we are very happy to now be able to offer our customers like an end-to-end solution that is covering the whole scenario from extraction through consumption, and ensures the security here.
That's another important point I think you're making here, because we are going to use your glossary and business terms of the SAP language when we get it to the outside world. Can you talk a little bit about that, and then I'll talk about how we can use it to enhance the understanding and visibility of access to that data.
Of course. To understand this, we talked about it in the beginning, right? So we have SAP, the data is stored like in thousands of tables with very cryptic names, so mostly like 4 or 5 digits, and it's like German shortcutted, and also the column names are the same. So
yeah, I just learned about KNA.
Yeah, for example, or VBAC. It's like you need it's tricky. Of course, everything is in the internet, and you can Google everything, but it's from a daily life of a data engineer or of a data scientist that is not so familiar with the SAP data model. It's so hard and frustrating to understand which column to use, which table do I need. And we have certain mechanisms and methods within our tool that helps customers to reduce this complexity. So we're replacing the fields, for example, so that it's like English readable, so that you can like semantically understand what data you have in the table. And this is like a huge benefit for the data engineers, because a typical data engineer has no clue about the SAP data model, or it's a new thing.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So taking what you just said, when we report about who's accessing the data, of course, transparently, we are going to tell the whoever wants to see data access, what data was accessed. So when you have business terminology, that makes it a lot easier. Even more than that, we can classify the data. So we can say, this is personally identifiable information. This is intellectual property. You have a lot of sensitive data that is not PII and is not intellectual property, but it's sensitive for the organization. For example, I worked with customers who said, you know what? I don't want people to know who I'm paying, what kind of vendors I'm paying, because some of them, I don't want them to know we have business with, right? So sensitive data. So you want to say this is sensitive. If someone looked at it, I want to know, right? So if we tag it, we can also put a risk score. So now we can say, okay, if this is sensitive data, the risk score is huge. It's like 500. And if it's PII, the risk score is medium, let's say 200. And if the data is just regular data, it's I don't know, a regular transaction on inventory of stuff that is not sensitive, I will give it like a 5. Now I can do a risk score to tell you, hey, this user is touching very sensitive data. They have thousands or tens of thousands of risk scores because they're pulling all of that super sensitive data. And then I have users that are touching low sensitivity data that doesn't have any PII and doesn't have any intellectual property and doesn't have any. So you know where to look at, because once the data is out there, there's going to be a lot of access, right? And it has to be regulated, but not only the rules, you need to have the rules to say who has access to what, but now you need to look at the patterns of access and understand what is the risk I have for this data.
Yeah. And having this option is accelerating these projects on working with sensitive data in the cloud very much, because we know all these discussions, right? It's a long journey internal on defining, do we really want to extract the data? So everybody is ready, the data engineer, the data scientist, they know what to do, but the final step on like that everybody agrees that the data is secure, it takes. And so people are really looking forward to have like accelerators here that are ensuring the governance and the security.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, so what do you say, Carl? You want to see a quick demo of a solution? Should I show how it looks a little bit?
Yeah, please show it.
Okay. So let's see. Let me note this. What do we want here? Share my screen. Okay, share. There you go. So I have two users here. One is user Jack. Jack is in finance and he's assigned to United States. So I'm going to run a quick select. So as you know, KNA is the customer table, and you'll see that I can see the data in clear text inside Snowflake. By the way, this is after SNP Glue moved the data from SAP into our Snowflake environment. So I can see the data in the clear, but I can also show you that if I'll count the data, if I'll count this data, then you'll see that I have 14,000, about 14,000. So which tells you this is only customers from the United States, because Jack here is assigned to the United States. Now I'm going to run the same thing for another user called Jill. So this is Jill. They're both J, so I'm showing here this is Jill. She's an analyst and she's assigned to Canada. So I'm going to use this database. I'm going to run a query, and now let's see the differences. So when I'll run this query, what we'll see is that first, I see only Canada here, where here I saw, let's do it again. Here I saw only US, right? So here it's only US. Now here, the name is in the clear because Jack is from finance, so I know he's from finance, but here, Jill is an analyst, so she doesn't need to know the name. She doesn't need to know, what is ORT? I'm guessing it's something important,
It's
right?
a location, yeah.
Location. I'm guessing this is a street.
That's the street, yes.
There you go. So we still need to do the translation of the fields. But the idea here is that according to the attributes of the users, I'll be able to filter what they see. So in this case, I filtered it, even though there is no where statement here. Jill can see only Canada, and the sensitive fields are encrypted. And Jack can see only US, and the sensitive fields are not encrypted because of an attribute of what he does for the company. That's the idea. And if I want to see what happened, I can go to my dashboard, signed out, I'll go in again. I'll go to my dashboard, and then I'll see exactly what happened. So this is, for example, Jack. So I can see Jack, what's the title of Jack? I can see that he's assigned to the country US. I can see that he did this select query. And then I can see that I rewritten the select query. This was the original select. And we rewritten it to say, now select it from a view where the country is the US only, because we got the US from, in this case, from Active Directory about Jack. So we know from Active Directory he's from the US. We will do the same thing with SAP GRC to get the information from there. And I'll be able to limit what they can see within the database. That's the nice thing about it. Now, if I want to, I also tagged it. So I tagged this as PII, so I know he accessed PII, and we can put any classification. So if they watched intellectual property, if they selected sensitive data, this will all be tagged here. So that's what we see for Jack, right?
That's amazing, Noam. So when you're working in Snowflake or your preferred tool, you even do not recognize that this security is there. So there's no additional layer. It's like
exactly
tooling that you know, and all the magic is done in the background. Yeah,
exactly.
Very nice.
It's transparent for the user. That's a nice thing. So this was Jack, and same thing will happen with Jill. So Jill will see for Jill that she ran the same query because we got from, in this case, from Active Directory, that she's out of Canada. Then we encrypted all of that important data for her, right? So we already tagged the important data, the PII data, and therefore we encrypted all of that data for Jill. And of course, we did a SQL rewrite, so I'll show you that. That'll be just for Canada. So here, this is why she saw Canada. So we replaced the regular select statement with a select from this view, where country equals Canada. So that's kind of the high level of how it works. Simple example, but very powerful because you're now starting to understand I can control the rows, I can control the column, I can control the cells, I can control if you can even see a table or not see a table, or if you can connect to the database, I can control anything and then report about that access. That's the idea. So that's pretty cool. Okay,
Powerful.
Yeah. Go to Q&A.
Sure, let's see if we have questions already.
So let's go to the questions. Okay. Question number 1. How do you know it's secure? It's a good question. How do I know it's secure? So I would say...
I know it.
We just know it. We just know it. I think there are 3 elements to what makes it secure. 1, you need to comply with some sort of an industry standard. And we support multiple standards here. 1, we support an industry standard of zero trust. So if you follow zero trust as it defined in NIST, as a NIST standard, or as a Department of Defense or anything like that, you will see that zero trust is going to data-centric zero trust. It talks about dynamic authorization. It talks about data tagging. It talks about field level and record level encryption. So everything we do complies with zero trust architecture in terms of the methodology. 2, the way we encrypt the data is also compliant with a NIST standard called SP 838G FF1. It's a long name, But what it does, it's exactly that format preserving encryption that we were talking about. So that was proven to be very strong and unbreakable. So that's another important part. And three, just I can tell you a few customers that are using us. One of the first customers we had was Vodafone in Germany, and they like security very much, right? Then we expanded into the financial space. So Credit Suisse and UBS is a big bank that we serve, and then we expanded into America. And in America, we have large banks such as Northern Trust and Fidelity International and other customers that are using our solution exactly for those things. So those are, vetted customers who vetted the product, and of course, because we are complying with all those standards, it makes it secure. That's a nice, a nice option there. Let's go to another question. So it looks like this is a question for you, Carl. Do I need an SAP license, an SAP LT license to send SAP data?
Okay, looks like we have SAP focused people listening. You do not need to have an SAP LT license bought. If you have it already, and if this is your architecture, we are compatible with LT, but it's not a requirement, and there are no additional costs upcoming for our customers that they have to buy like a SLT license.
That's good. So with whatever they have, they can start sharing data in the cloud.
Yeah, they need to have an SAP system. So this is the requirement when you want to come in. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question looks like it's for both of us. How long does it take to implement this? Okay. So I'm guessing you need to go first because it starts.
Okay, yeah, I'm extracting the data. So let me start. So pretty fast, can be within a day or can be several weeks. Mostly depends on how fast the basis team is installing the software, but we have quite good results with customers installing everything on their own in a couple of hours. But we are also helping in that installation process, and we are also doing the first pipelines we create together, but then the software is built to be self-used. So usually a couple of days, and then we are ready to go.
That's nice.
So now, Noam.
So yeah, I
How long
think
does it take?
Very similar. We do support microservices architecture. So if you have a good DevOps team that knows how to create a Kubernetes cluster, or you can just do a standalone Docker and just multiply that and do some load balancers, that's very quick. So the installation doesn't take long. It's a few hours to a few days. And then you need to decide what are the policies that you want to enforce. But we have kind of a phase approach where we say, let me show you what access there is there. So that's kind of phase one. Let's just install it and let you see who's getting access to the data. Of course, with SNP, we will do the enforcer that will encrypt the data as it goes there, or even leave it as is if you just want to see what data is getting used. And then we can have policies to say who is allowed to decrypt the data, who is allowed to get access to the data. And we don't have to encrypt it when it goes. So we can say it can stay in the clear in Snowflake or Databricks or BigQuery or anywhere else, but we will encrypt it as it's being consumed to the people who needs to see it encrypted. So we can do that as well. So the customer can kind of choose the implementation methodology. So that doesn't take a long time. So that's a good thing. Okay, let's do another question. Will my SAP system still be secured when open to the internet?
Yeah, so this is for me again. Good question. I hear this quite frequently. I didn't mention it in the beginning, but we ensure security by pushing the data over. So there are no external requests from the internet or like from the network telling the SAP system send the data over there. So the configuration only outbound. So the configuration is done in the SAP system. Yeah. The SAP people decide what data are extracted to which targets and in which intervals and which selection. So all this is defined in the SAP system, and the data is just sent outbound. So it's very secure by default.
Yeah. Another question here, can I reuse already implemented business logic from my SAP system?
Valid question, because you saw the SAP tables, and also we have a lot of customers that have done a lot of implementation of business logic in their SAP business warehouses. So the thing that you had before the cloud data warehouses, you had like a BW business warehouse system, and yeah, you invested a lot by developing ours to make it custom to your business needs. And of course, we can also directly interact with this development from the customer and extract the data directly from it. So there is not especially the need for the customers to re-engineer what is already in the SAP system from scratch in Snowflake or Databricks. So we can leverage this already implemented business logic.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, well, I think that's all the questions. I do have one answer without a question. I want to share with you. And I want to go back to that GRC. I think, one of the nice things I like about the solution SNP Group is that you move data from SAP to the outside world. But what I'm more excited about is the fact that you can expose the business logic of the GRC roles. And I think even for customers that maybe are using something else to move their data, if they were able to do it, I think it's important that we have that integration where SNP Group can tell us something about GRC, roles, rules, governance, and we can then translate it into the open environment. I think that's super important. That needs to be real-time sync all the time, because you invest a lot of time and money doing governance, so you don't want to repeat it in the outside world. You want to have it synchronized, right?
Exactly, and not in real time, as you said, not just like on the next day. This is very sensitive data, and you want to have it as secure and bulletproof as you can make it.
Very good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So I think that's it. That's all for today, right?
Well, if there are no additional questions, sure.
Sounds good. Carl, it was a pleasure. Let's do it again.
Looking forward to that. Thank you for inviting me, Noam. Was a pleasure. And to the listeners out there, if you have additional questions, you have Noam's and my contact, and we're happy to discuss the questions in person.
Sounds good. Okay, thanks everyone for joining. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.